Hey everyone, it's Lisa with Are You My Cousin? It's Thursday, so it's time for another weekly Facebook Live, YouTube Live chats. We do stream both live to YouTube and to Facebook at the same time. If you are new to Are You My Cousin, the Facebook group or the Facebook page, the YouTube channel, I want to welcome you and thank you for joining us. This is something that happens every Thursday at 3 o'clock Eastern time. I'll let you guys calculate your own time zones, where I come and chat about all things genealogy. And today, as you can see, I have Mary Eberle with me. Hey, Mary.
Hey, Lisa.
So guys, if you had questions about DNA, if you were in part of our chat the last time Mary was with me, we talked about DNA Painter and what are the odds tools, or if you're just kind of new and you're hearing about those tools, but you really aren't quite sure what they do or why you might be interested in them, you're in the right place today, because Mary is going to be talking a bit more on that today. So I'm so excited to learn more about it, Mary. I think that's going to be a great thing for us. So if you are new, feel free to let us know where you're watching from. Feel free to add a comment or ask a question during our session today. We do monitor the comments and we do our best to get everything answered that we possibly can. Interesting, now Mary and I are not even in the same state, not even close, but we are actually both have had a bit of a cold lately, so I sound a little froggy. So just bear with us there if I need to cough or get some water, or either one of us does. So we just need to let you know that. So, hey, Deb, good to see you again. Hey, Flo is here again from Oregon, and Lydia from Michigan. Hey, Teresa, good to see you from Kansas. Guys, I was recently in Ohio, and I tell you what, there are some fantastic genealogy resources up there for genealogists, as well as a lot of cold weather is all I can say. It was really cold. Hey, Dave, good to see you from Washington. So, I'm so glad everybody's here. So while people are getting a chance to join us here today, before we get started, just kind of give you a little bit about what's going on at Are You My Cousin? Really pretty much just kind of heading into the Christmas season and the holiday season. Next week's live stream, I will be talking with you and sharing with you about holiday records and using holiday records for finding your ancestors, and building in some social history to that as well, because you guys know I love social history with that. So be sure and tune in next week if you want to. If you are in the midst of your holiday Christmas gift shopping, I do have gift guides over on the website. So feel free to head over to lisalisten.com. Go into, there's a nice big search bar now. I've fixed all that on the homepage, where you could type in gift guides and you'll find gift guides for the genealogy researcher, for the family historian on your list, or for you if you really just want to do it for yourself. I won't tell if you buy gifts for yourself, because, well, I do that too. Do you do that too, Mary?
Yes, and my cats.
And your cats. That's right. That's right. All right. Hey, Amy, good to see you from Oregon as well. And Nancy from New Jersey. Hey, Dee, Madison, Wisconsin. Melissa from Colorado. Hey, June from New Hampshire. Oh, we've got lots of people joining us. Hey, Mary Jane from Pennsylvania. Danny from Loveland, Ohio. Yes, I was just in Ohio. So it's beautiful. I'd never really driven through there. It's really pretty up there. I like that. Okay, doke. Oh, and Rena from Iowa. Wonderful. All right, so I'm going to get ready and turn this over to Mary here in just a minute, because if you joined us last time that Mary was with me, which would have been about 4 weeks ago, Mary shared with us about the DNA Painter and DNA Painter's tool, What Are the Odds? And so today she's going to walk us through a little bit more of a case. Would you call it a case study, Mary, or just more of some practical ways it was used? So, but I'm going to put a link in the comments. So if you missed the last live that we did together, I'm going to put a link to that YouTube video in the comments so you can watch it later and go back to it. So let me go ahead and that's already in there. And while Mary's talking, I will also drop in the link for the DNA Painter and all that good stuff. So Mary, I'll let you take it away.
Okay. Well, thanks, Lisa. And thanks everyone for joining us today. Lisa, would you like me to start out with that one question?
Let's do. Yes, okay. We got a wonderful questions. A gentleman emailed me, and so he had a question for Mary in DNA, so I wanted to have Mary address that today. So yeah, take it away, Mary, on that one.
Okay, great. Well, the question involved whether testing of children of a deceased spouse who had not tested before they passed away, whether that could recreate the DNA profile of the deceased spouse. And the answer is that it can at least partially do so. And if you started out with one child and did testing, that one child would have roughly half of their parents' DNA. So that would recreate about half. And then if you tested a second child, because the two children are going to share half with each other, then it's going to add in another 25%.
Okay.
So two kids, 75%. And then if you had a third child and that third child tested, now you're going to have the 25%. So you get to 12.5%. And when you add together those three, it comes up to 87.5. So, it's a pretty good amount of the matches and things like that the parent would have. But you can see that, every time you add a child, if you had, 10 kids at the very end, those additional children would be adding less and less and less because you're having that amount.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah. But it sounds like it's probably it's a lot of work to do that, but it's something, but it is something you could use to perhaps extend a line back if you got the right enough people testing. Is that correct? In theory?
Right. And if the living parent tested, then, that would be nice because then you can subtract out those living parents' matches and, you're able to more easily identify those from the deceased parent.
Okay.
And there's actually one additional tool that's available to us at GEDmatch.
Oh, okay.
So GEDmatch is a third-party website. They collect DNA test results from different people who've tested at different DNA testing companies. They do allow law enforcement to use their database. So people should be aware of that.
Yeah.
But the tool is in their group of tools available if you have a paid subscription. So that's a tier 1 subscription. It's called the tier 1 subscription, and it costs $10 per month. And the tool itself is called the Lazarus tool, and it requires at least 2 sets of DNA matches. And those matches have to be in GEDmatch. So you take the one set is the children of the deceased person, and then the second set is other relatives. So it could be the deceased person's siblings, their parents, their cousins. It can even be matches in the database that are on that side of the family. And it does allow for a third set of a third category, which is the spouse. Because what it's doing is it's looking at the DNA of the offspring. So you need one or more offspring. And then it's looking at the DNA of basically the relatives of the deceased person. And it's assembling together this DNA profile that, depending upon the quality of it, you can run a 1-to-1 comparison where you're just comparing that created profile to one other person. Or if it's high enough quality, then you can run a 1-to-many where you take the deceased person's profile and run it against the database.
Okay.
So this is another tool that's available for that kind of work.
Okay, great. I did put that in the link to GEDmatch where you can find the Lazarus tool. I did put that in the links in the comment section, guys. So you can find that there. if you're watching on YouTube, I'll drop it into the description when we're done. And Mary, you did bring up a good point that, like when you're looking at GEDmatch or any of the genealogy databases, you've got to make sure you check your terms of service. And as she said, with GEDmatch, law enforcement is allowed to see that as well. So not everybody was comfortable with that. So I just wanted to bring that up, but thank you. We won't go off into the weeds there, but I wanted to make sure people knew that.
Right. And for GEDmatch, the default is that they don't allow law enforcement to look at your it's not that they're looking at your DNA, it's that they're uploading samples from crime scenes and they're comparing it to the whole database.
Yeah.
So whether or not you want to be compared to a crime scene sample.
Yeah.
So if you want to opt into that, you just go into your profile and you select that.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Okay. And also just one other thing, that the more kits you have, as you can imagine, the more kits you have to recreate the deceased person, the better the results are going to be.
Yeah. So the more tests you do, the more. And this is the time of year to buy DNA test kits, guys, just so you know. This is the time of year to do that.
Right. Things are on sale. They were on sale a little bit before, and I think they're on sale now.
Yeah.
So the holidays is always a great time.
Yeah. Really around any holiday, but the Christmas holidays, definitely. All right. Thank you so much for answering that. I really appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okie doke. You ready to take a look at that what are the odds tool?
Sure.
All right. I will put that up there. All right. There you go.
Okay. Thank you. So last time we talked about the what are the odds tool, and the main thing that I use it for is for when I'm helping people with unknown parents. However, I assume that most of the listeners here are interested in great grandparents or second great grandparents, some missing ancestors. So this is a little case study that I did for my own unknown second great grandfather. So let's see. Lisa, I'm not sure if I can advance the slides. Maybe, okay.
You should be able to. Did it go? Yeah, it went.
Does that work? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so a little bit of background. My goal was to figure out who my second great grandfather was. And he's the father of my great grandmother, whom I refer to as Rose number 2. Rose number 2 was born in Quebec, and she passed away in Wisconsin, where I live. Her mom was Rose number 1, and Rose number 1 was an immigrant from what today is Poland. At the time, it was Germany. And she initially came into Quebec. And she then moved to Wisconsin, where she passed away. So just looking a little more carefully at her timeline, she arrives in Quebec in 1861. She's 21 years old. She's single. And 19 months later, she gave birth to Rose number 2 in Quebec. Roughly 4 years later, after arriving in Quebec, both of the Roses arrived in the United States. And they came, as far as I know, they came directly to Wisconsin. Then, when Rose number 2, the baby, was 3 years old, her mother married in Wisconsin. And we do have a name for the husband. He is Gustav Seaman, and he is actually on every single vital record that Rose number 2 has. But to me, this just never seemed to make sense that this husband who married her mom when she was 3 years old would be her biological father. And there was no evidence of him being in Canada, and he comes from a different place in Germany than Rose comes from. So this was the mystery to me as to, is he really her biological father? And I have doubted that since I realized these facts. This is a family tree that I created. We've got in red boxes, we've got me, Mary Eberle. So my brother tested, our aunt tested, and it's our father's mother. And then going up one generation, we go to rows number 2, the baby with the unknown father. So the unknown father is up here. And I recruited my first cousin once removed to do DNA testing to help resolve this mystery. And since I worked on this, I've been working on it actually for several years. There were a couple more people who showed up in the databases who did DNA testing. And they were all descendant from my great aunt. So we've got children of the great aunt and children of my grandmother. But everybody leads back to this mystery. This is basically the same family tree. I've put a line down the middle to say, these are one group of people. Group A, who descend from my grandmother, and then group B, who descend from my great aunt. And I've left off those few extra people that ultimately tested. They're in green on that last slide. But the point of this is to look at who are the most recent common ancestors for these two sets of people, for my A set that I belong to and the B set that my cousins belong to. And the most recent common ancestor for these two groups are rows number 2 and her husband, whose surname is Gaib. And I'm looking at this because I want to be able to focus in on the mystery, which means it would be really nice to get rid of everybody else at this level. And I was able to eliminate quite a few matches who come from this great grandfather of mine and his parents. So that definitely cleaned up things because it's no use in looking at them. I really want to see, are there these extra matches out there who could be the key to figuring out who this is? His wife has a surname of Kuhn, and I wasn't able to do a good job of eliminating people with that surname. It's fairly common, and I did see some people with that surname, but they did not descend from this part of my tree. So the nice thing is I'm able to at least get rid of this part of my tree when I'm looking at the shared matches between people over here and people over here. And in looking for those shared matches that come from either Rose's father or Rose's mother, I found a group of matches, and they all went back to these common ancestors. So I pronounce this Balle. It's a French surname, and Weiser, a German surname. And I found this genetic network by looking at people who were shared matches of 2 or more people from group A and group B. I was able to eliminate the people that came from Rose number 2's husband, as I said. And again, these are the most recent common ancestors to that group of people. the brother of the husband in the most recent common ancestor, so the husband was Peter, he only had one brother who was Michael. And he was born in Germany and passed away in Michigan. And the question became, is Peter the birth father, or is his brother Michael? And actually, there was the possibility of their first cousin being the missing second great grandfather. So looking at Michael's timeline, he was born in Germany. He married quite old at age 30, quite old for the time, not necessarily today, but he had a wife in Germany, and he had a son with her, and then he arrived without her and without the son in 1880. So this is arrival in the United States. And going back to when Rose number 2 was born, she was born in 63. And I do have this very large gap in his timeline where I'm not sure if he was still in Germany or if he was in Canada. And his brother was in Canada at the time. So it's very possible that he also was there, maybe visiting his brother. Going back to the what are the odds tool, I looked at both my aunt and her first cousin. So my aunt is down here. Her first cousin is my first cousin once removed. And I focused on their matches and looking at how much DNA they shared with these matches, because they are one generation closer to this mystery than I am or my brother. And I had some results from doing the what are the odds tool on both of their results. The strongest hypothesis for my first cousin once removed was that Michael, so this is the brother, was Rose's birth father. And the first cousin once removed, she had pretty strong matches compared to my aunt. So we just have this random distribution of DNA, and this cousin happened to get more of the DNA from this mystery line. My aunt, on the other hand, had relatively small matches. And when I ran the what are the odds tool on her results, it said that Michael Balle is not Rose's father, but instead his first cousin is the birth father. So this is a hypothesis with a score that's 38 times more likely than this one. The cousin has a hypothesis that is 65 times more likely than this one. It's basically giving me the opposite answer. So what do I do? One thing was there was a warning about my aunt's matches saying basically the amount of DNA shared is relatively low, and you might get a more conclusive answer if you had better matches. So it was willing to give me an answer, but at the same time, it was saying, be careful, because the amount of DNA shared is so low. And it was things like 35 centimorgans, 22 centimorgans. The average was under 40 centimorgans. So at this point, I was thinking, well, do I just ignore this and go with Michael? Because my cousin's matches come back with this strong suggestion. And I posed the question to the What Are the Odds Facebook group, and they told me that there's something you can do called twinning. And twinning is where you're combining two people's results in one tree. And those two people have to be the same generation. So that means they have to be siblings or cousins, for not where one with a once removed situation, but in this case they were first cousins, my aunt and my first cousin once removed. So they were the same generation. And what you do is you create a tree, and in the What Are the Odds tool, and for each match, you make a duplicate or a twin. So you just say, there's another child, and I labeled it twin. I put the name on plus twin, and then I enter in the centimorgan numbers for my aunt onto one of them, and the centimorgan numbers for my cousin for the other one. And this is going to trick What Are the Odds into calculating from both trees, but they're going to do it into a single tree. So I was very excited to try this because I had those conflicting results. And I duplicated one of their trees, and I called it the twin tree, and I added on all of those twins. So this is one match, Mary B, and I left in my aunt's amount of DNA, and then I said, okay, Mary B, she's the twin, and this is for my cousin. And you can see how much different the amount of DNA my cousin shared with Mary B, which is 170 centimorgans versus 45 for my aunt. And I did that for every single match. So beneath that is Patricia and Colleen at 18 and 22, and Patricia and Colleen at 82 and 91 for the cousin. And same thing here for these people. And what this did was it left only one hypothesis. So I think this red one might be covered up right here. Let's just look at, I think I have an enlargement, right? So this is an enlargement of what I was just showing you, where this would have been their cousin. This is Michael himself, the brother. And what combining those two data sets did was it told me, well, the only possible hypothesis, and the hypotheses are where the test taker fits in. So this would be where my aunt and my cousin fit in. The only possible place that they could fit in is here, being the child, grandchild, great-grandchild of Michael. If we look at Michael's cousin and going down the same line, the possibility of them fitting here gets a score of 0. And this meant that Michael is highly likely to be the birth father. It would be nice to have more people test. And for sure, I can eliminate the cousin. So this just is like looking at some more possibilities. And because I just wanted to make sure I hadn't forgotten anything, one point to take away from this is when you're having that tool, the what are the odds tool, suggest new hypotheses, as I mentioned last time, they can just create way too many possibilities. And I got rid of all of these because I thought about the age differences, and I use 25 years for each generation. And I then realized that these are the locations where my aunt and our cousin would fit in, and not further out. So let's just summarize, and that is here that the twinning, this is comparing Michael to the possibility that Rose was actually Peter's child. So this possibility popped out with a score of 1, and this one has a score of 120. So again, the strongest hypothesis is that Michael was the birth father. And down here is their cousin, which had that score of 0. When you ask the tool to create hypotheses, they will create these unknown siblings and unknown half siblings. And I eliminated this because there aren't any half siblings that we know of. So that left me with this comparison. So that is a really nice finding from this twinning aspect on the what are the odds tool. So I was able to, feel a lot more certain, because before I did this twinning thing, I was left with my aunt's result versus my cousin's results. And it did feel like the cousin's result was a lot better because I wasn't getting that warning about the low matches.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's like, okay, well, now we've got definitive numbers.
Nice. That's interesting. I had heard of the twinning technique, but I've never used it. So it was nice to see how you did that and how you can use that with the DNA painters. What are the odds tool? That's a good technique to remember going forward, that we can to do that with.
Right, because especially when you're looking for those ancestors, the amount of DNA that you're sharing with people is typically pretty low.
Mm-hmm.
And then this, the predictability of those numbers just, falls down. But luckily in this case, my cousin had decent matches with
Mm-hmm.
this group of people.
Yeah. And it does come down to the quality of your matches that are out there ultimately, like it does with any tool that we use. It has to do with, getting those tests out. And now, have you identified other people? You said it would be nice to have other testers. Have you identified other testers that you have reached out to or that you plan to reach out to?
I've started building the trees forward from Peter, and I think I'm at about 1920. So I need to keep on going. And then it's funny, like the whole reaching out to people you don't know. A lot of times I'm encouraging my clients to do that. And if it's a distant relative, I will do it. But at the same time, it was like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to have to ask somebody to test that I don't even know. And so it was a funny, a good exercise in putting myself in the place of other people where, like, so I'm just going to reach out to them and say, hey, by the way, I think your great-grandfather is my great-grandfather. Would you do a DNA test? But one thing that helps in that situation is if you can get another DNA match who knows those people, then, it's much easier to say, could you ask them? Like, you've done DNA testing. I think this is how I'm related to your family. Are you in contact with these people? And,
right.
Could you talk to them?
Right. That's actually, that would be, I'll be interested to hear in the future, like what some of your experiences were with reaching out and how you chose to reach out to certain ones. And it might be interesting for us to hear that in the future. Just, how did it go? And what are some of your tips of, what kind of resistance did you meet? Or were there certain tips that you always worded things a certain way so that people would be more receptive? Because, yeah, I mean, it's, it's basically cold calling, and you've got to make sure you establish who you are before you
Mhm.
do that. I mean, because that, in a sense, can be a big can be a big ask type thing.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, best of luck with that going
Thank
forward.
you.
Look
Thanks.
forward to that. Guys, if you have questions, you can pop them in the comments. We'll give you a few moments to do that before we wrap things up this afternoon. So, yeah, how interesting that is. As you were doing this, I had this research project in mind that I'm working my own personal one. And I thought, yeah, it's time to get it. It's time to put that one in DNA Painter and see what happens. Try that one and see what
Mhm.
happens. I'm like,
Mhm.
"Ooh." Now that I've seen, I saw your last video, and then of course we did the last live together, and then this one, I'm like, okay, yeah, I think this would be really beneficial to go ahead and it's time to do that.
Mhm.
Because
And
I'm just at that end where I just don't have any more paper
uh-huh.
records at this point.
Right. Right. Well, and another tip I would say, so this first cousin once removed of mine, I took my aunt to Florida to visit her.
Mhm.
And they were both probably around 80. I think the cousin was 85-ish. And I had a DNA kit in my bag. So that when, the minute I asked her, and she's very gruff, let's just
Mhm.
say, the minute I asked her and she said, sure, yeah, sure. Well, how are we going to do that? And I was like, well,
You just whipped it
here we
out.
go. And, with the holidays, especially, if we are getting together with family right now,
Mhm.
it's a good time to have those things in your purse or your backpack, because it's a time to have those conversations. And um,
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kinda like that, have DNA kit will travel, you know? Just
yep. And then another thing was in that group of Bali matches, I had been messaging one of them on Ancestry, and she was not responding.
oh,
And she had a pretty unique name, and I found her on Facebook. It was the same picture on Facebook as it was on Ancestry, and this
mhm,
unique name. And I reached out and I said, "Hey, hi, I'm Mary Eberle, and we are DNA matches and on Ancestry." And I was just wondering, like, do you have a family tree? And she was super helpful. And
oh, good.
because you think like, why, you when you sit and worry about what is she going to think, I'm stalking her on Facebook. And in general, people are really nice and helpful. And she told me who her mom was. And then
Good.
I said, I think we're related through the Balle family. And then she can focus on what I need to know.
Mhm. And I think you're right. I think, when people, I think when we go at it and are very, we're very earnest and very, just kind of matter of fact and showing what we have, being willing to share what we already know. I think that's such a huge thing, and because it lets people get to know you. It is about building kind of a relationship with that
Mhm.
person, however brief it is, kind of thing. So Pam is over in the Facebook page today watching. She said she received another Ancestry DNA test kit today. It's their 9th test for the family.
Oh
They're
my
hunters
gosh.
for sure. I love it.
Wow.
Wonderful, Pam. So Pam, do you definitely keep them in your purse when you go places, right? And June said her DNA brick wall goes to her grandfather's mother and father's father. Keep getting names that match on the family line, but not a location at the same time at the births.
Hmm.
So it looks like she's getting some conflicting information. Yeah, that's tough.
Right, and it depends upon how common the surname is.
Yeah. Or June said, or she should say at the time of conception of the birth. Can't get them in the same place at the same time. Yeah, that can be tough. Definitely. Pam says she does travel with them in a purse. I love
good.
it. Oh, Mary Jane, her English cousin got all the kids together and proved that we're really related. Oh, that's fantastic. When
Oh, neat.
when you have a point person in the family who can do that, that is fantastic. I had something similar for a lot of years. Unfortunately, my research partner has passed away, but for the family of John White that we descended from, he took point and coordinated everything, and I would help him get testers and things like that. And it's really helpful when you have one person who can kind of pull everything together like that. It was really helpful. So yeah. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Mary, this has been really, really helpful. I really appreciate you joining us again to talk a little bit more. It helped me definitely to kind of see it in action a little bit more. So I appreciate that.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Hey guys, I'm going to put a link for Mary. So if you're looking for Mary online, she is at DNA Hunters. So I will put that link in the chat as well for you guys so that you can find her if you need to reach out to her. Hang on, I'll grab it here. I had it. Oh, there it is. So yeah, next week, as I said earlier, I will be talking about holiday records and how to use those to find your ancestor, as well as kind of pulling some social history out of those holiday records. It's a fun one, but it is absolutely a vital part of the paper end of research when it comes to that kind of stuff. So we'll be here for that. Feel free, if you haven't seen the new look over at the website, head over to lisalisten.com and you'll see the new website. I think it's a lot easier to manage and a lot easier to maybe to search for things and to find articles that you might be looking for over there. So I hope you guys are liking the new look. There'll probably be some tweaks coming up, but I think it's pretty much what it's going to look like for now. And I hope everybody has a fantastic week, and I will see you next week, guys. Have a great one. Thanks, Mary.
Okay. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, everyone.